Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our third session today. I'm joined by Tosin, the style infidel, whoop, whoop, and Peju Famojure.
What's up? How are you doing?
What do you say?
I said, how are you doing though?
I'm good. So I'm just trying to, so this session is called African Brands on the Red Carpet, and it is something that's very close to my heart because basically every time there's a Black celebrity on the carpet, I'm just like, but where are the African brands? Where are they? So I'm really, really excited to be joined by Peju Famojure from New York and Tosin Ogundadegbe from Lagos today. And they're going to be giving us all the tea, all the insight, all the tips. So I hope everyone is ready. So first of all, I'd like both of you to give me a little bit of background about yourselves. Tell me about your career, like how you started, just so that people can kind of familiarize themselves with your journey.
Okay. Is Peju there? I think Peju should start.
Yeah, I'm here. Hi.
Hi, Peju. How are you doing?
Good. How are you? It's very
I'm
early.
very well, thank you.
I'm in New York right now, so it's very early.
Yeah, I've been
So yeah, a little about myself. Like I was actually born and raised in New York, but for my fashion career, I started off like as intern, I think as many people have. And I started off as an intern at W Magazine. And from there, I was hired on as a freelance editor. So I went from W and I worked at Elle, I worked at Marie Claire, Teen Vogue, Harper's, Interview. I kind of like touched base on all the prestigious New York titles before moving to Paris actually to be the editor, the only French editor of Harper's Bazaar there. The German edition, actually. So I was living in Paris for about 4 years in that role, working with exclusively all the French houses and the brands, getting more familiar with them more so than I was being in New York, but just overall, really strengthening my relationships there. Upon moving back to New York, I started working with Solange Knowles on a lot of her projects. And we know like she's a phenomenal woman, like her artistry knows no bounds. So that was a lot of fun for me to be able to go from like the more corporate structured world that is media to be able to go with someone who is just like a free spirit. And from there, I was able to work with her sister and work with her sister on a few projects. And that's really where I've always had, obviously, a passion for, you know, African brands, specifically Nigerian, because that's where I'm from, but never having the opportunity to be able to really utilize them the way that I would like to, just, you know, due to advertising, corporate, political, fashion issues. So when I started working with her sister, I was really able to do that because she answers to no one, right? So Beyonce doesn't need someone to give her clearance on what brand she should not wear.
And I love you're like her sister. You know, it's Beyonce.
Oh, yeah, and I keep saying her sister. People are like, whose sister? So I probably should say Beyonce. So working with Beyonce on bringing African brands into the conversation in her like everyday life and into her wardrobe was really important for me. And so I was happy to be able to do that as well.
We were excited by we and me. So Tosin, tell me a little bit about yourself. Give us some backstory.
Okay. I stumbled on fashion in 2010. It wasn't in my line of action. So I started out as an intern with This Day and Arise. Started out as an intern for about 2 years. I was an intern for about 2 years. Then went back to school, Obafemiolo University, to complete my education. Came back into Lagos, got a job with Olisa.tv, where I was the fashion editor. And I was there for about 3 years. And in between, I juggled being a fashion writer and an editor / a stylist. And while still doing that, I've been privileged to work with some of the biggest brands in Nigeria and outside Nigeria sometimes. How do I summarize this? 2016, I was called in to be one of the lead stylists for GT Bank Fashion Weekend. 2017, I mean, till date, 2016 till date. I think that's roughly the backstory. Shooting lookbooks, shooting fashion campaigns for luxury brands and all of that.
Isoken is one of the few Nigerian stylists that I'm like, my eyes closed, like, okay, I trust him. Go ahead, do it. Book him. He'll do it for you. So I think that's like, it's amazing
Thank you so much.
Like, your growth and your journey. So let's get into it. Africa is very much the zeitgeist right now. Everyone is talking. Yep. I mean, Black is King was a whole experience. I won't lie, I cried. Peju, are you there?
Yeah,
it was embarrassing because I just felt like, I think when we saw the initial trailer, some of us, especially some of us that are African, it was a little bit like, I don't know where this Wakanda stuff is going, what's going on. I don't know. And I'm a big Beyonce fan, but I still felt like, I don't know about this. But when we saw the finished product, it was incredible. I loved how it was done. I felt like it was, especially because obviously it was tied to the Lion King projects. So they could have gone in many different ways. They could have gone with a coming to America cliche, version. They could have, but the fact that they, really gave it that, an African flavor, but a very contemporary African flavor. So going all the way to the dances and, the individuals that they worked with. And I felt like that was very powerful. And it kind of, and honestly, I feel like every time Beyonce works with African brands, she moves the conversation forward another sort of 10 years, right? So where we're talking about, she's going to wear for a performance, and then now she's doing it in video. And now, so I feel like there's just a lot more appreciation now. And I know personally some brands who worked on Black is King, they didn't make the cut, but they made money because they paid them for the stuff that they pulled or whatever. So I thought that was really, it's a smaller lesson, but it's an important one, right? So for me, how do we, if you were sort of speaking to an African brand or consulting with an African brand and working as a stylist, how would you advise them to sort of capitalize on this moment that Beyonce has so graciously given us?
Yeah. I mean, I think what's important now is that you have to realize that with this project that she's done, it's really helped pivot and change who the messenger is. The messaging now that's going to be coming from the continent is going to be coming directly from the brands and from the creatives. And so I thought that was really helpful and a very strong point of the film. I think people were getting all tied up in the conversation about who's allowed to do what or what it should appear like, but you should really be happy with the fact that the conversation is now open to make sure that the people who are responsible for these trends or responsible for this aesthetic are going to be part of the conversation going forward. Because now you can't say that you don't know who they are. Like, the platform they have been given is phenomenal and it's huge, So in terms of like, how can brands capitalize moving forward, I think that what they need to do is really, like bunker down on what their point of view is now more than ever. And honestly, to use social media to, pervade that message. Their message should be strong from their platform so that people really understand who they are and what they represent, and having like a clean, focused agenda. So whatever that agenda is, they want to start moving into direct to consumer, or if they want to, move into like wholesaling or wholesaling abroad, like they should really start focusing in on that now,
Okay, that's a good one. Tosin, do you want to chime in?
Oh, yes. Okay, so like you said, Black is King was has been a very huge platform for a lot of African creatives, designers, and stylists, because a lot of them worked on that project, whether directly or indirectly. And we can't deny the power of platform. We can't deny the power of visibility as well. But where I always come in, as much as that sounds very, very good, where I always come in, or where I'm always very particular about, is how does this translate to sales at the end of the day? We've seen brands dress tons of celebrities, and at the end of the day, they pack up. the platform is good. The platform is really, really good. It's, in a way, it's a sort of validation. But what happens after the validation? The commercial side of things, it's pretty important in this business,
I mean,
especially on this side,
it's actually,
especially on this side of the continent where you don't have investors investing in brands. I mean, over there, we still have LVMH, we have Kering, we have
Richmond,
Inditex that owns Zara, Massimo Dutti, and all of that. But we don't have that here. So a big star over there on the international scene can wear your piece, and at the end of the day, all you just get is the buzz. And moving forward, the person wears another person, and then gradually you just keep. I mean, we saw what's his name? Michael Costello. Let me use Michael Costello as an example. When he dressed Beyonce, and he won't deny the fact that he got the right platform. I didn't know Michael Costello before, until maybe Project Runway, and then after that, Beyonce, he dressed Beyonce, and then he skyrocketed. But if you look at it on the scheme of things today, he's nowhere.
It's a bit harsh. I think
I'm being very, like, if you look at mainstream.
He had a scandal. He had a scandal tied to him.
Yeah. So
he had a scandal tied to him, and that's what affected.
He messed up.
Yeah. So I wouldn't necessarily blame that on the fact that
figure that out. Yeah.
Rolled through by the industry.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I'm just really particular about what, especially the African designers in this sense. As much as we all want to be a part of a very huge, life-changing project, at the end of the day, I always believe it has to translate to sales one way or the other. As much as you want to show, as much as you want to show them your, sorry, I'm here. As much as you want to show them your creative dexterity and how good you are with creating and all of that, when would it translate to sale? How would it translate to sales?
I completely agree with that, 100%. But what I will say as well is that I don't want to discourage young creatives from being like, oh, you have to be super ready. If this opportunity comes, if you're not ready, turn it down. That's what happens. Some people get so scared. It's like, oh, I'm not ready yet. I'm not going to do this.
Right.
Branson said a very long time ago, sorry. Say it. You'll figure it out later. And to be honest, like a Beyonce level, I mean, I guess the fear would be not delivering, which that I can understand, right? Because if they call you up, you better be able to bring, the business. But if you can't, then that's a different issue. But when it comes to sales, I feel like if you can bring a good product, you can figure it out. That's the truth. Like, yeah, you will.
But that's another phase of the business, right? Yeah. I mean, the right motivations were there in utilizing these brands for Black is King. But after that, the responsibility then moves back to the brand, right? And does the brand have the discipline to start structuring and strategizing themselves as a business? Because a lot of times designers, no matter what market you're from, they all have the same problem. Designers are not businessmen or businesswomen. So then that's where the problem comes from having sales. Are you ready to be, selling on an international level? I know we have production problems in Nigeria, but outside of that, do you have tax? Do you have tax? Do you have line sheets? Do you have pricing? Do you have your retail strategy? Like those things are equally important. And if those things are not in place, then it's no one's, fault other than the brand's own.
There has to be like a preparedness kind of mindset, right? Because I feel like if you get that call, from the moment you get that call, you need to be thinking about what happens next. Because if you're going to get this platform, there's no point in wasting it, right?
No, but I think it comes before, to be honest. Because
that's what I'm saying. You have to start, with
having worked on the celebrity projects. I mean, I know the call comes like, can you do this in the week? So there's no time for someone to then think like, because I know I'm going to get a lot of media off of this, I probably should prepare, my retail strategy. No, like it's impossible. You can't be like making a custom garment in 3 days and then thinking about a retail strategy. Yeah. You should already be building that into your business if that's the kind of business you want to have going forward. If you want to have a bespoke business, then that's different.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm just giving leeway for, different sort of business models. And I mean, and sometimes someone might just, and you just like, because I know in Nigeria, for example, you just find something on Instagram, like, wow, that's amazing.
Right.
You want it, and it's like, oh, it's not actually for sale because I wasn't planning on selling it, but it's like, well, but I want it. And that's how I'm not joking. A lot of businesses start, right? And it's like, oh, wow, someone actually wants what I created. So there is obviously like room on the spectrum in terms of preparedness, but I think that obviously everyone should be thinking of their brand as a business. So this brings me to, why don't Black stylists, especially, so Peju, this is for you, because I think that luxury law, Rich just did a whole in style spread with Zendaya that was incredible, used all Black designers, and I love that it, like, from the accessories to the shoes, it was a whole thing.
Yeah.
And I obviously know that, like you mentioned earlier, there are some constraints in terms of like, corporate stuff, some political stuff, like, just within a magazine, there's, So I think that the pandemic has given people a little bit more leeway because, people are shooting at home, people are shooting with their, their kids or whatever. But, and obviously with the BLM movement as well, there has been a lot more like conversation around, Blackness and the Black movement. But prior to this, I feel like there weren't very many, because I think the only people who come to mind straight out the gate are Tracy Ellis Ross and Issa Rae, who made a concerted effort to wear Black brands, right? And for me, again, this is almost like a personal question. I think it's relevant, but it's something I've always thought about. Because if for example, I was maybe a Kiki Lane. Let's imagine if Kiki Lane was like Nigerian, right? So like you're young, you're hot, but you're not quite, you're not a huge star, yeah? And you might not have access to the Dior's, the Chanel's, or you know what I mean? But you're trying to make an impact on the carpet.
Right.
I would think, right, if you had a Black stylist and you were Nigerian or you were African, you would look to the continent first in terms of things that would be unique and interesting and impactful in a way that like a generic sort of European looking brand, So I don't know why that isn't the natural leap. I feel like that literally never happens. Even with people who I know have Nigerian stylists, I find it very strange.
Yeah.
So is there any particular reason why, or?
I would say there's a few barriers to that. First barrier being timelines. A lot of projects and things happen very last minute, and unfortunately, shipping from the continent to Los Angeles is like 5 days. Yeah. So at that point, it's like, honestly, forget about it because it's not going to make it on time, and it won't be a suitable option because it still needs to be tailored and fit and all those things. So that's one big barrier, depending on if it's not like a big red carpet where in advance, when it's like even a press day or when they go on like a TV show or talk show, those things are last minute. They're never, like the calendar is never that clear. So that would be one thing. The second thing I would say that there is definitely a lack of education in the brands that are like doing well on the continent or are amazing on the continent. So there's also that of people not just actually knowing. The thing is that I have a background as an editor in a magazine. So my background lends itself to wanting to research and look into things. Like that is the difference. I came from a background of editorial where my main scope of work was to research and do market, as we call it in the US, to find out what's out there, to find the unique piece, to find someone doing something interesting, whatever it may be, because there was a protocol set up. So we had a fashion shoot for, let's say, W, and the reference was Marie Antoinette. It was my job to go into the market for not only like the top 10 luxury brands, but even the smallest of brands for this woman in London who makes gloves with like fine pearls. Like that was my position. So I've been able to take that and moving into a more consulting strategy where I'm always digging and looking for the next person doing something special. So that I would say that's the second barrier. A lot of stylists don't come from that background. So they don't know how to find things. They only go, especially with Instagram, now they just look at what somebody else wore and they're like, oh, whose showroom is that? Let me go to that showroom. And that's the third thing. Another entry point would be a showroom or having like a press officer that is local. if there was a press officer or a showroom locally, I think we'd see less issues with getting people into those brands.
Okay, that's interesting. So Tosin, I want to talk to you a little bit about lookbooks.
Okay.
So I know that you do, like, I mean, I feel like in the last sort of year, you've been working very consistently on, like, you know, building people's lookbooks, and I really like how with each brand, it's very specific, and you clearly have like a point of view and an aesthetic that you're working with. So with people who are merchandising, you know, items that it's like, okay, you know, we want this to go on the red carpet, we want to place it on like Risa Dominic, for example. How do you position that, like that messaging, and make sure that, you know, if I were to send this to Risa Dominic's stylist or to Risa Dominic's people, they would be like, yes, you know, we want this. Can you just walk me through that a little bit?
Okay. So where do I start from? Okay, let me start from using or from the point of view of a young designer or burgeoning designer trying to break into mainstream fashion. So when you're starting, as much as, like, I totally agree with you with the understanding the business part, when you're starting out, it's basically capturing people's attention. And that's why you find out that there's some things you see on the runway. When you get to the store, it's been distilled to a more wearable, more commercial, with more commercial appeal. Now, if I find a young design, I think it's one of the things I enjoy doing. I love scouting new talents, especially designers, young designers. If I'm able to find someone with so much craftsmanship, taste, as in whose taste level is good, and I can just guide the person through. If I feel the person works well for the clients, now I would have the ones that love glamour. I would have the ones that love a bit of quirk. Now, I can't take someone who does quirky stuff and take it to someone who is glamour, who is all about glamour. Neither would I take someone who does a lot of glamour and then bring them to someone who loves to look very quirky. Now, in this sense, when I find a designer who I feel fits into a certain space with a certain client, it's easier to communicate with the client and tell the client, this is who I feel will deliver. I'll give you an instance. When I did Adesuwa Itomi, and we went back and forth on a couple of designers we wanted to work with for a specific kind of look, because she's very specific too, for a specific kind of look. At the end of the day, we ended up with Samuel Noon, who created one of her most iconic looks and also sold out on that look. Now, the price went from, let's say, 3 Naira to like 20 Naira, just because you had, and as at that time, someone hadn't even shown at Fashion Week. Nobody knew him. It was just starting out. But that's like knowing the right partnership. Adesuwa is a classic. Samuel's taste is classic. So it was just good for me to just bring both of them together. And I think I do a lot of that for young designers, where I feel if your aesthetic works with a certain client, I bring you together.
Okay, that's actually a good jumping off point for my next question. So Peju, when you are, you know, thinking about pairing brands, whether it's, you know, for editorial or for, you know, for the red carpet or for a photo call or whatever, what are the major considerations when you're choosing a brand? Like when you're saying, like, whether it's going to market or, you know, just figuring that out. What are the top, like, 3 things that you have to have?
I mean, the first consideration is what the imaging is of that moment, right? So the first thing you consider is what the client needs are, what the client wants are, who that client is, what do they represent. You have to go based on what that person like inherently has in them. You know, like you don't want to put something on someone where they can't carry the look. So I can't particularly like pinpoint like a particular like silhouette or style that is more relevant than the next, because you don't know who is capable of wearing what. So it's just about like what that moment represents for the client and what brand would be best suitable to like partner and, you know, match and be a match.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So COVID has changed so many things. I mean, there are no more pretty much. We are struggling. So how are you working? how are you working currently? Because obviously your jobs tend to be very in person. I know that in some movies that are still they're still trying to work out like virtual calendars and stuff, but it's not. I mean, it's not the same. But then, how is it working for you currently? Like, what are you doing?
Okay.
Go ahead.
No. Please, Peju, go ahead. Let me listen to you.
I would say that, I mean, we're obviously like speaking from two different places right now. So, and I'm in New York, which is even much different from Los Angeles. So the pacing of what's happening in New York City versus what's happening in Los Angeles is also drastically different with how I'm sure you guys see in the media, how the US is handling COVID. So as far as what I can say about in New York, I know things are kind of resuming because people need content.
Yeah.
And that's an important part of a lot of people's businesses, especially those that use social media and have a direct-to-consumer business model. You need content. Like, you need to inspire people to shop with you. So people have been shooting content. Some editorials have also kicked back up because, as we've seen, not too many magazines have done a great job of doing this, like, work from home pandemic photo shoot. They're kind of dry. So people are just going back to the old model, and I had a shoot over the weekend, and, you know, it's just a smaller crew. Everyone wears, like, you know, protective equipment, masks. Some people have shields on, and we just do what we normally do.
Fair.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound fun at all.
But there's way less, you know what I mean? So, like, normally, you know, I would have a shoot and I'd have like 2, 3, 4 racks of clothing. And, you know, that editorial job I did over the weekend was very finely edited. So,
because I think I can imagine, like, think people are worried about clothes as well, you know, pulling stuff.
No, because I know what they're doing here. They're staggering appointments if you do a showroom appointment. Showrooms here, for the most part, are not operating on full schedules. And then for I guess sanitary reasons, you know, like, they won't let an item be pulled twice in the same day, or like in the same 48 hours. I don't know what science they're basing that off of, but they won't allow you to utilize the same piece so they can, like, you know, clean it.
So
yeah.
Okay. Tosin?
I mean, at the start of the lockdown, I was very scared. I have to be honest with you. So, okay, I was scared. I was scared to death because I kept asking myself, what next? What next? But sometimes I realize that when things like this happen, it pushes you to start thinking outside the box of other things you can do. And I'll be very honest with you. I don't think I've had a break since March.
Oh, wow. Go you.
I haven't had a break since March. If we're already shooting lookbooks, we're shooting campaigns, we're not shooting campaigns, we're shooting birthday portraits. If we're not shooting birthday portraits, we're shooting family portraits, or consulting with designers. Because I think at some point, designers, they're realizing that this is not going to be forever. And they needed to start planning for their lives post-COVID. So I've been doing all of that. I started teaching. I started doing all of these things, and I don't think I've had a break since March. Obviously, it's not as intense as it used to be. Mode of work is completely different. I'll give you an instance. There was a shoot I did where the model was the makeup artist and the hairstylist.
Okay.
And she got paid for both and for being a model too.
Yeah, that's fair enough. It's a lot of work, so yeah.
Yes. And she got paid for being three persons in one. So as much as things are not the same, I can't go around with my crew. Most times I have to work alone. At the max, I probably go with one assistant if I have to. But definitely things are not the same. But people are working. Yeah. Things are moving. Things are changing. Definitely not like before, but things are still moving on.
Because I even feel like, even with like the magazines, especially over here, who like, and they're shooting with like people's phones and like camera, yeah. You're giving it to a kid. It's just like, how are you gonna go back and justify budgets that you had in the past?
It shouldn't go back though, because I mean, there's a moment now to like have some evolution, right? Like we're in the middle of a revolution of other things. Why wouldn't we evolve this business that's been operating in this way for so long? Like it's time to restructure it, to reshape it, to realize that things don't need to be static. Like things can change and they can change for the positive. I think with this given an opportunity too, as well, is that we've already seen how social media kind of opened the conversation for everyone to be a player, right? That's what social media, one of the good things social media brought us is that you don't necessarily need someone to back you to do what you want to do. You have your own platform now and you can say what you want on in that space. Yep. And so I think in relation to COVID, and the pandemic, people are even seeing that even more so because now they're spending so much more time at home and using so much more technology outside of how they were prior to the lockdown, that brands can use this moment to continue that work, to continue pushing forward and relating to their customers on a one-on-one through their platforms, you know?
That's powerful.
Yeah.
So, sir, can I say something?
No, go ahead.
Can I share something? Okay, so restructuring and reshaping, like what you said, I think it's about time for that. And I'm happy all of this happened. All of this kind of propelled that to happen. But I also like to say the market here is completely different from the market there. Now, fashion designers or fashion brands are starting to take in technology, which is very important. But also, I saw a virtual show that was put together. And as much as it looked very innovative, very good, from my own perspective, Nigerians don't buy. Nigerians want to see the garments on an actual person.
Yeah.
So this is the thing. I don't think that virtual runway shows are going to replace.
No,
I
don't.
I don't think they're going to replace it because things. I mean, everyone has. I mean, most people have an insight because I mean, in Canada, I think we went on lockdown on the 23rd, and we just of March, and we just entered phase 3 like last week, and we've been at home. Like, I'm tired, you know. So people want outside. So I definitely think that there will be like a pent up demand, and there will be people who are like, you know, I can't wait to like go to the shows and see my friends. And so I don't think it's gonna replace it, but I just thought it was a very interesting because, for example, the Hanifa moment was insane. That was incredible. You know, that was. It felt like you were watching, like, you know, I don't know, like a revolution in fashion in the moment. In small things like using like a curvy 3D model. She didn't use it, so it just gave us a different idea of how things could be. So now circling back to the Black moment. So on a personal level, how are you leveraging that? Like what are you changing in the way you work? Because I feel like for a lot of creatives that I've spoken to, especially in fashion, where it's like, oh, you know, I didn't realize at what point I kind of just gotten used to it being like, oh, this is the way it is, right? It's just kind of taking it like, you know, I can't work with other Black creatives. There can't be too many of us in a room, you know, that kind of mentality. And you're kind of like, when did I start accepting that, right? So I feel like people are looking closer to home and people are looking at their current, you know, work situations. How can I make it, I don't know, Blacker, or just more authentic to myself? So I just want you to tell me a little bit about what you're changing. I mean, Tosin, you're in Nigeria, so Black all day, every day. So just in general, like what are you changing about just how you think about things, essentially, with both COVID and the Black moment?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's sad that mentality ever existed, but it permeates itself in every industry. It's not just a fashion problem. I do consider that people should be optimistic because what this social outrage and social justice that people are seeking is going to do, it's already cracked open a book that didn't want to be open. You know, like one thing that this pandemic did bring us was time for people to think. And people were able to think and have sort of like understandings outside of themselves, you know, like they were able to understand that there is a lot going on in this world besides what's going on in their own small world, especially from the US perspective, where it's a very autonomous society and we don't necessarily have community thinking. This is a moment that that is creating a new way of thinking in the US. And so I can say from here, from this standpoint, like the Black people who work in fashion specifically, or any industry, are really calling to action these corporations, these brands, on what they're actually going to do that's not just virtue signaling. Like, we don't want a performative thing. We don't care about, I mean, we do care that we're using Black models, but what is a Black model doing that, and for the business, you know, like what is that doing in terms of creating equity for other Black businesses? So I think that is very optimistic to see. Like, we have the Black in Fashion Council now, which I'm a part of, that's creating an index which will actually, you know, rate these corporations and these brands on how well they're doing with including Black people and people of color into the conversation and into their business. Like, how many people work there? What level do they work at? We're not asking hire more people in your shop. We want people in corporate level, executive positions that are making
positions.
Exactly, that are making decisions. So honestly, I'm optimistic about it. And I do think that this is a conversation for the whole diaspora. This is not a US centric or focused conversation. Obviously, it presents itself in different ways. Like in Europe, the way they see race is, I live there, like, I almost think it's almost worse because I'd rather have an overt racist than an overt racist.
Because they just bring, it's like, oh my, it's like gaslighting. Like,
yes, they gaslight 100%, you know? So we're seeing this going to ripple through the entire globe, like globally it'll ripple through. And I think what that should signal for brands specifically, especially African brands, is that they should be ready. Yeah. They should be ready because they're going to be up to bat pretty soon. And so they need to get their business prepared, because you're going to see a lot of conversations surrounding how can we support these brands in a better way? Should we start wholesaling these brands? But in order to do that, you have to provide your side of the deal. You need to have a tech pack. You need to have line sheets. Like Tosin works on all the lookbooks. That's fantastic, so that people have an idea of what your point of view is. But you need to make sure that there's continuity from season to season. Yeah. You know, you need to make sure that you have a structure, an infrastructure in place that once people start coming to you to do business with you, you're ready to be in that business, because it's going to happen. And it's going to happen sooner than you think.
I mean, I think it's already happening, because I know somebody who work at Moda who's asked for a list. You know, it's like, we're looking for designers. I know the same thing's happening in Nordstrom. There are quite a few. They drag their wigs, and it's like, it's not good enough. Where are your Black brands? Like things like the 15% pledge. Where are your Black brands? We want to know. Right. So the girls are not playing.
But don't give anybody a list for free.
Yeah.
Let me say that.
Hey. We have questions. We have about just over 20 minutes left. Okay. We have a question for Peju. What background does a stylist need right now to break into the international industry?
I would say that you just need to work on your point of view as a stylist, your aesthetic as a stylist.
Very important.
There's no particular background. I didn't go to a fashion school. You know, like, I'm Nigerian. I went to school for pre-med, let's be honest. I was supposed to be a doctor. So it's not necessarily that you have to study fashion to work in the business. You know, fashion is an industry that welcomes everyone. So make sure that if you're starting to style, do projects with your friends. Have your friend be a model. You can be the model yourself. You can work on with clothes in your closet. You can be creative. I mean, if we use like,
show us your point of view.
Yeah, show us your point of view. Like, if you think of like someone like Ibrahim Kamara, genius. I mean, he's an artist. To me, he's beyond a stylist. He's an artist. But if you look at his work and you look at his early work, you can see that he was just working with whatever he could get his hands on.
Yep.
The thing is, I think that a true creative you just want to create, you know, like
Right.
you will find a way to create, and then
You'll find a way to do it. Exactly.
For us later.
And as we've seen a lot of transference now between like even being an influencer and becoming a stylist, you know, like of course we've seen it more so with the white influencers that happens with like Gilda and Ambrosio and you know,
girls, yeah.
the Attico girls, but that doesn't say that it can't be done for you. Or Julia Samoa from ID, she's a black British girl. She became a stylist based on being an influencer. You know, people were very into what she personally
presents.
Exactly.
Kristen, there's a question for you. Do you accept all paying clients, or do you only take clients that fit your style?
Do I? Well, I take, at the end of the day, as a stylist, you should be able to take in briefs and interpret. So I have all kinds of clients. Most of my personal clients, private clients, are classics. No one is doing quirky. No one is doing how do I put it? No one is trying to play experimental. Private clients. Now, like Peju said, if you put someone in a piece they can't sell, it reflects bad taste to you at the end of the day because you're not the stylist.
Yep.
A lot of times, we take in everyone, we listen to their brief, we try to understand their personality, where they're heading to, either at an event or as a brand. You always have to understand, we always have to understand that. Like I can remember when Lady Gaga started, and she started with the whole high fashion and pushing the envelope and all of that whole avant-garde notes. But look at Lady Gaga today, she's toned it down.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel every brand or every client has a vision of where they want to be or who they want to look like. And it's the job of the stylist to create that image. Yes, I take all clients, I take in the briefs.
Give me the cash. Okay, final question. If anyone has any other questions, you can just pop them in the Q&A box because we're about to go. But my final question for you is, what brands currently are you looking at? What African brands are you looking at currently that you think can and should make the leap? That they can translate like right now, like not like, oh, you know, in 5 years or in 10 years, like right now you think that they can, and don't mention anyone who's already, you know, breaking free. So you can't, like none of the LVMH finalist guys.
Right.
Someone that you think is like, oh, you know, this is an interesting brand. I like their point of view. I like their aesthetic. I think that they can translate in the West. I think that they can make it.
Let me see. There's this young designer, and I think what I always look out for is a designer with a point of view, a unique point of view that is commercial and artistic at the same time. His name is Michael Zigrot. I think on Instagram he's known as Zigro, and he just recently started his brand. I was privileged to preview his debut collection, and trust me, I know there is a space for him on that international scene, and I know he would do well here in Africa as well. Michael Zigro or something. I know his Instagram handle is Zigro, Zegreo.
I'll DM you.
That's a very tough question because I actually believe in a lot of brands, to be honest. I think a lot of brands have
like there's no
I mean, I believe a lot of brands are like are in the luxury space and can be in the luxury space in a global sense. Like I love what Nikwo is doing. I love Mina. I love Mina.
Did you say Mina?
Yeah.
Did you say Mina? I love Mina.
I love Mina.
Absolutely love. I'm obsessed with Mina.
Obsessed, yeah. Nikwo, I think is genius. I think the way that she uses traditional fabrics and denims and everything, and the mixing is very fresh and innovative. Obviously, Lisa Falawo does beautiful, like she should be on the red carpet. You know, one of those brands that you're like, how come this is not on the red carpet? You know, in the U.S. red carpet, I should say. And those are Nigerian brands, but I also really love, like, there's a girl named Gloria, butchering her name, Gloria Wakanu. Yes, from Uganda. Love what she's doing as well. So, you know, there's a lot of people, Tokyo James, I love what he does too. I guess he's British, but there's a lot of brands that are ready, you know? They're ready from the point of view. What's happening with the paperwork in the back, I don't know if that is ready, but I think there's a lot of brands that are definitely ready. And I do think that what's also this pandemic is bringing us is that the way that people are going to consume fashion is going to be much different going forward. There's still going to be a need, but the conversation of overconsumption is also a big issue. And I think that African brands can really lead that conversation because African brands are waste-free. You know, like they don't overproduce, you know, like because we don't have many points of sales, it's not as if like, you know, Temple Muse is ordering 500 of that dress and they only sell 200 dresses left over. So that business model, what we're going to see happening going forward with the bigger brands. And African brands should jump into that conversation because they already do it inherently. And I think people don't realize they have the power to drive that conversation because they see it as a normal part of their business. But they could really lead that business for other people.
I agree, because I think that I was reading this thing maybe like 2 or 3 months ago, and it was like, oh, you know, the new thing, I think it was business, and it was like made on demand or something, like no production on demand. And I was kind of like, don't we already do this? I don't know.
Exactly.
I feel like we do this already, but okay. We have 2 more questions. Okay, guys, we have to. Okay. It's from the same person. I think it's open, so whoever feels like taking it. In my quest to becoming a fashion designer, is getting a mentor the first thing to do? How do I start? Follow-up question: what should my focus be as an absolute total beginner in the fashion industry?
Should I start?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. I always advise that you take an internship. So you learn. You learn in between the lines. You learn. You don't know what you don't know. You know the funny thing, when I even got into fashion, I thought I knew. But when I came to Lagos, I realized I didn't know jack shit. And I'm serious. And I had to intern. I had to learn. I had to open up myself to learning. Safe personal development. I had to learn. And I think the issue with like a lot of people is they just want to be stars, just like that. They just want to roll with the big wigs, just like that, without learning. If you don't learn, I'm not cursing or anything. It will be so quick for you to crash if you don't learn. If you don't learn, you will be so quick to crash. So it is very important. Find someone your aesthetic connects with. It makes your life easier. If you want to do celebrity styling, don't go to someone who shoots commercials. They're completely different. So internship is very key. Thank you, Peju.
Yeah, I agree. I would say the same thing. That's also how I got my start. And Tosin is absolutely right. Like, if you're absolute beginner, figure out what your strengths are, right? Like, there's only clarity in engagement. So you need to engage with something in order to figure out like if this is something that you are interested in. So if you feel like you're good with communication, then maybe you should go intern with a media public relations company. If you feel like you are strong with like color theory and understanding fabrics, then you go intern with a stylist. But then, like Tosin's saying, celebrity or commercial, like you should pick, you know, based on what your interests are, like if you are into more experimental fashion or not. So just think of those small basic things, ask yourself those 1, 2 small questions, and then find someone and just reach out to them, send them an email. Like, I have no problem answering emails from anybody or answering questions from anyone that might have a question about anything, because it's each one teach one. Like if I'm able to give you some answers about something that's helpful to you, why wouldn't I do that?
That's.
I don't think I also don't necessarily think a mentor is necessary. I do think it's necessary for you to understand what part of the business you want to be in. If you want to be a fashion designer, then you should go intern at a fashion company that is doing good business. You know, not just one that you like. Don't worry about what they're making. Make sure they're doing good business. Then when you make something good, you already have the understanding of business fundamentals, you know? But a mentor, it could be helpful, and a mentor doesn't have to be a fashion person. Like you can have a mentor that's a banker.
Yeah.
You just need perspective, right? So, and you have your friends that you go to for perspective. You can have someone who is older than you and more, you know, successful or more experienced.
You can even pay a mentor, to be honest. You can have pay mentors. It doesn't have to be.
It could be from any, it can be from any background. It doesn't have to be a fashion person. Actually, when, you know, I was hiring interns and things like that, all the fashion magazines I worked at, it was very interesting for me to meet interns that came from, you know, diverse backgrounds in terms of their studies. Like if someone came to me and they're like, oh, you know, like I'm studying engineering, but I want to see what this is about. Then I was interested in that candidate. I wanted to see how they would relate their past experiences to what they want to do going forward. Yeah.
That is very, very true. And I also think that sometimes people rush to be like, oh, you know, I need a mentor because I need someone to tell me what to do. But the truth is what you're looking for is actually in the work. You need to go and, you know, get some work experience, start to figure things out. And to be honest, if you're doing the right things, a mentor will probably come along because you are doing the work. So thank you so much, guys.
Thank you so much for having us. It was really nice meeting you. Really nice meeting you.
Yeah.
I'm happy to connect.
When I come to Lagos, I don't know when that's going to be.
It'll be great to catch up with you. It'll be so great to catch up.
Yeah, we should definitely catch up.
All right, guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
The next session is in the chat, so you can join us in the next one. Bye, guys. Bye.
Bye.